Okay, so for the final last session of tonight, Pascal will doing a session about agentic dev teams. So probably
No, it's just much more than yeah.
use AI to do all your work for you.
True.
Right?
Yeah. Thanks, brother. So yeah, we couldn't find a third speaker for this event, so that's why I'm going here. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. I like to sometimes just present for the community to show you the latest and the greatest, or what I think is really, I would say, the new innovation of what is coming. I'm going to talk about unlocking the future of integration development at scale. Just answer. Who does integration development? Most. Who is who considers himself to be an integration architect? Say, if you're developing, you're also somewhat of an architect, right? So this is where I think a lot of things are happening in this area. So my belief is that our jobs will change over time, but it will become very quickly the new reality. And I think we need to be mindful of that. We need to think about how we should pursue our work, or how we should see our work, and how we can redefine how we work now and in the future with all the new innovative development that is going on. And I like this phrase, we are transforming the world with AI, because my colleagues all have AI is transforming the world. And I don't like that sentence. I think we are still in the driver's seat, and I think we are still the ones initiating AI to do stuff, so that we can be more productive, basically. So in this new era of product development, and we see, especially on the GitHub side, we see a lot of things happening. So I guess that most of you, when you are developing integrations, will use Visual Studio Code, maybe other tools, but I think the majority will use Visual Studio Code because of all the extensions for Azure Integration Service we have already built in Visual Studio, right? And an important part is GitHub Copilot. So I'm just wondering, hands up, who uses GitHub Copilot? Wow, that's already a lot. On a daily basis, I guess. So, and basically, this is where we started, right? So we are the developer, that integration developer, and we talk to one agent, that's Copilot agent, GitHub Copilot, to help us build code, understand code, help us fix bugs, maybe do some mappings, could be. But we now are moving to the next phase. And the next phase will be that we, as an integration developer, or integration architect, or any kind of person working with code, has the ability of using more than one agent. And we already see this in the pane, right? So we already see that we can use, and you have the agent mode, but recently, just a week ago, Plan Agent was also released. We have a coding agent in GitHub.com, which we can use. So the era of agents is coming. Well, how can we leverage that from an integration perspective? I think we can, and I will show you. So in my slogan, because this is something I don't only talk about for integration, it's basically integration development is application development. It's the same life cycle, we need to cover the same parts. So how can we modernize at scale and low cost and blazingly fast? I think by using, and I see a lot of companies aren't there yet, right? So I think a lot of you maybe don't even know or haven't heard of the term platform engineering before. But basically, platform engineering is the way to bridge that gap from infrastructure as code to a developer. If platform engineering is between, they can monetize security standards, governance. They can do all kinds of things to make it easier for the developer to start quickly based on corporate standards. So that's platform engineering. And basically, when you have a team of integration developers developing integrations, we want them to develop the integrations in a similar way. Having the same practices on security, doing the same things on monitoring, governance, etc., etc. And we use, in this case, platform engineering practices into spec-driven development templates. And this is a term that lifted off basically on LinkedIn, I would say like beginning of this year, maybe already last year. And this has gone like to the sky. And I'm really enthusiastic about spec-driven development because as integration developers, we are using spec-driven development almost daily, always. Because integration development is all about the specs, it's all about the mappings, it's all about the documentation of how we develop integrations. So we are already doing this, which is a big pro. Because then you can use this, the method I'm shortly showing, you can use this for your integration development. And the other part is using AI agentic dev teams. Well, that's basically you as an architect leveraging multiple agents to do the work for you or making it easier. So just to focus a little bit on spec-driven development. What is spec-driven development? Well, it's basically creating clear and structured specifications before writing any code. And we have, as we call it within software development, we have ups and downs in this part, right? So we have rapid prototyping, so then we basically try to create something quick and possible so we can demo it quickly and then iterate on that application. So there are different kinds of methodologies that have passed the review, but this one is really specific and really interesting when it comes to AI. So when we're developing with Copilot, context is key. So using spec-driven development is a perfect fit. Mostly what you see also is that documentation is mostly an aftermath. So most application developers don't like to document. They do it at the end, or maybe not. Right? So in this case, with spec-driven development, we already create that documentation to start off. That's our basis to start off developing. Also creating use cases. We write out use cases that we want to have covered within our integration. We already do this. So spec-driven development is key in this one. And I think as an integration developer, we already do this too, out of the box. So this is something where I try to educate the application developers to do this more and more, because this is for them also interesting. So what I'm going to show you is the art of the possible. So this is now possible. I recorded a video which I will show you and I will narrate just during the summer, because and also from Microsoft perspective, also as a personal perspective, as a solution engineer, what my job title is at Microsoft, I need to rethink my job as well. I need to rethink myself as well on how I can do things faster and quicker and better. So that's why I dive deep in this, so I can learn myself. That's why I'm now sharing this with you, what my learning is. And I also want to show you basically how you can do it yourself. So after this presentation, I hope you can try it out yourself. Just do the same steps that I did to create this. So this is a GitHub repo, and this is a template I created that have multiple specialized agents. So I have a discovery agent, I have a solution architect, I have a plan for automated creation of code, and I have a manual one. I have some prompt files defined. That's more like it's easy to use, to replicate. Based on this template, I'm going to create a new repository. In this repository, I'm going to do an integration or develop an integration between the web shop and the Cosmos DB, containing customer data, order data, shipment data. And I'm just copying the template. So basically, I have my template already there to start off developing my integration platform, or my integration pattern list. So I have different kinds of prompts that I'm going to kick off. This is the first prompt. With this prompt, I'm going to add and update the existing chat mode. So basically the existing. I'm gonna pause it one time. So with this prompt, I'm gonna update my definitions of agents, which I have defined here. And I'm gonna update the model that I'm going to use for each agent. Not each agent needs to use GPT 5.1 or Cloud Sonnet 4.5. For some tasks, you can basically use maybe a mini model, which is much cheaper. So think about which agent needs to do what, and we already, this was during the summer, we already created something like auto. So we can already do an auto pickup model, but still, this is interesting because you can specify it specifically for each model, and you can also test it and train it a little bit, so you can see what the outcome is of each agent with each model. And you need to experiment, right? Because you need to find out how it works. So basically, this prompt will just ask to the agent mode, stating, okay, I have a URL which states which model to use for which purpose. Just look at the web page and do your thing. It already kicked off the MCP server, right? So the story of Sagar is really important. MCP is key when it comes to agent collaboration or also agent use. And I will deep dive on MCP as well, because the combination with MCP servers in combination with agents is really, really interesting. So we're going to update these models. Oh, it's a little bit too quick. I'm just going to run that prompt here. I use GitHub, I use Docs, I use Azure. We'll allow it, log in, log into GitHub, MCP server. So now it's just seeing what it needs to use. It will just do that fetch of that of this URL, and it will search for the chat modes I've already defined. It's going through all these chat modes, and then it's going to figure out which model to use for each chat mode. I find this a really nice example of how to use MCP server in combination with things you already have within your project. I'm using GitHub MCP and Azure MCP daily, especially when my agents are working for me over there. But I will show you later. So it will give me a summary of which models defined for each. So here for the documentation specialist, it said like, use a MIDI. That's fine. But save some money here. That's good. So starting my process of implementing that integration. So here's the link that I used. So starting off that implementation, I'm going to start off with an analysis. I'm doing a discovery of my Azure subscription, discover all the Azure integration services that I have within my subscription or in my tenant, and provide me this information in an IDD, an integration discovery document. This asks me if it can connect to Azure MCP server, and it's already using MCP server Azure to get the information out. So basically, it's just doing the work for me. I just want to develop an integration. My team already built a landing zone in Azure. I want to make that integration pattern fit the environment I have already in Azure. So this is my landing zone. It has all components. It has service bus. It has API management. It has everything I need to create sync, async patterns. And you can see here that on the back, it's fetching all that information via MCP server. And it needs to summarize everything in one document. What I also did in my specification of my agent mode is that I also want to have some diagrams in there, because I like diagrams and I like visualization of the architecture that is already there, so I can make better decisions. So I created the documents. I used like a tag to filter out all the services, but you can make this just the way how you want it. So it figured out a lot of the things already by default, like core services that I'm using standard v2. Well, let's look at that diagram. So we created this mermaid diagram. AI understands mermaid because it's code underneath, so it's really easy to create. And it created this diagram, which is really, really nice. It shows my VNet topology with all the things I have deployed in there. It uses external access for front door. It has a really created a spot-on diagram for my architecture. And here you can see basically the nitty-gritty bits, like it uses key vault, it uses a private endpoint. To be honest, I checked it completely and it blew me away, to be honest. Having this connection with MCP server, with the agent mode, creating this document, that it would take for me ages to find out what's already there. That's a time saver. It's a big time saver. So I have this description of this document. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to say with the solution architect, I'm going to use the IDD, which the analyst created, and now I'm going to specify the integration pattern I want to create. So basically, I prepared already this prompt, which I'd say, well, I want to have functional and non-functional requirements. I want to have data mappings in there. I want to have security conditions, etc., etc. So I put this in one big prompt, and I basically tune my agent to be able to process this data. I also want to use some example data for the entities, because I'm going to update that later. That's fine. But if I already have that, I have specified like a folder which I call raw, and you can just incorporate that always in the definition of your IRD. So if you already have an open API specification or have a data model, use it. Okay, kicking that in. Using MCP server again. Looking at the best practices, because we have, with Learn MCP server, we already have Architecture Center completely embedded into that MCP server. I don't need to look at the Learn, I don't need to look at Architecture Center, I just let the MCP server do the work for me. So it's going to create that IRD, it's also going to create a diagram, and it also asked me a question, because I said here something like, please notify me when I want to add stuff or miss stuff or need to do certain steps. You can also embed that into your prompt, so the agent will ask you questions. This will only work for the more reasoning models, right? So that will be 5.1 or Claude Sonnet 4.5. These are really fit for these kinds of use cases. Okay, so in this case it doesn't see that I have the diagram open, so I just say like I already have it open. Pick that. Or in this case the IDD, it didn't know where to fit the IDD. Probably some mismatch in file location or whatever. Okay, it found the IDD, it found the IRD, so it's going to create an IRD. As you can see here, these are my graph. I think I'm gonna open the diagram first of the This is what the IRD looks like. And this is the pattern that it will create. Yeah, it's to be honest, it's quite wide. I wouldn't draw it like that, but it is correct, to be honest. And here you can see all the information that it generated to make that specification, including sample sets what I've asked, like sample example data for the customer, for the order, for the shipment, etc. So everything is in there. What we're now going to do is that we're going to create a dev plan based on that IRD. So I have my specification. Just pause this one. So I already have the requirements documentation with the non-functional and the functional specs. I can add that in between as a manual step. That's fine. I didn't do that in this case. based on the IDD, so that the discovery and the requirement, I'm going to create a dev plan which outlines all the tasks that I need to do, basically, which I need to code. And I want to have like CI/CD pipelines for deploying the whole solution. So I'm embedding everything that needs to be there so I can deploy this in a production manner. I'm going to create GitHub issues for all the items I create in the dev plan. I'm going to attach all those to an epic, which is implement this integration pattern for me. And I will assign it to coding agents in the cloud to do the work for me. Basically, I just say, this is the epic, these are the sub tasks. Develop. Oh yeah, and I also want, you don't need to write documentation or test case because I have a separate agent doing that afterwards myself. Or basically, just let AI do it for me. Right? So, it's fetching best practices for the development plan. I like that. It's what I definitely want. It's generating those issues, and I want to guess that when it's finishing that plan, that when it creates that dev plan, it will also kick off MCP server to open issues on GitHub. Because I want to trace what is happening, I want to trace everything that's being built, so I can look back on, okay, this is what it did step by step. This is the development plan, so I basically also set everything in certain steps, which I also specified in the agent mode to do it in a certain order. If it sometimes gives a cross, that isn't an issue. Now it will just retry itself when this happens. So when an MCP server fails, it will just automatically retry again. So I kicked off, created all those issues. Here are all the issues. Basically creating extra functions, creating open API specs, everything that we need for this project. I assigned it to Copilot. So I delegated the issue to Copilot just to create this. You see here all the issues that I have attached. I also want to let him check off each issue that it created or that it done. And it created this one PR. And I can zoom in on the PR. And I can look at the session on how it's actually developing on my project. And as you can see here, also coding agent in the cloud uses MCP server. So MCP server is important because you can leverage that in the cloud as well. You can see that I had some, in my first run I had these, I just guessed, what did I forget to specify with the agent? Any idea? I was running locally on my VS Code. I needed to commit the changes of my documents, my specs, before a coding agent could do the work. But still, the explanation in each issue was already very spot on. So that's, it already did, for a first base, it already did a good job. So how did I do this? With the help of AI, of course. And again, AI isn't perfect. We are experiencing I would say, an unmatched revolution when it comes to AI. It gets better every month, big time. And we can make it less imperfect by giving it more context. That's what I've learned. Give more context, then the AI will give better answers. And what I've done is I don't know how many people of you use Microsoft 365 Copilot, so the Microsoft 365 one, couple. It's pretty nice, to be honest. In the beginning, I was like, okay, although I'm Microsoft, I'm a little bit skeptical. I still rather use ChatGPT or something else, or Perplexity, which I also like. But the ID coach agent in Microsoft 365 is really, really good. Because what did I do? I asked, hey, I have an idea about building this end-to-end development flow using AI for integration scenarios. Let's brainstorm about that. And it did a fantastic job. it helped me split out the different steps that it needed to do to create an integration pattern, from scratch on, right? So it did. You need to do an integration discovery. You need to do this. You need to do this. These are the defined scopes. These are the outputs. And I could also ask, like, okay, I only know what to ask, what I know, right? So you can only know the things. You can only ask for the things that you know. That's the thing. But AI can help here because it identified some gaps in my plan, stating, hey, you should include like the design patterns and the security architecture. I didn't mention that in my initial ask. I said like I wanted to have this plan. But it helped me fill in the gaps to make it more complete, basically. So that's something that I really love. So what I did is I fine-tuned the definition with the idea coach. And at one point I said, okay, now I have all these tasks that I need to do to create this integration pattern. Imagine, so I said to the idea coach, imagine that there is an agent to do each task. Please help me define this agent, specify a system prompt, give it grounding. How does a handover look like? All these kinds of questions made a real good definition of each agent performing each of the single tasks. And at the last step, I said I needed to have it in this specification. And this is just the chat mode specification from GitHub. What will be the output? My discovery analyst looks like this. So it performs automated discovery of measuring the zones. Does the filtering, the tag filters. Well, I was pretty happy with this one already. I built it a little bit out, but still. So we have agent personas or AI personas that can do these things, but how do I implement this? This is where I use GitHub Copilot or the Copilot platform to help me out. With GitHub Copilot in VS Code, I focus on these features the most. And custom chat modes. So last week I was in the US on GitHub Universe, and basically they renamed it to agents. So basically chat mode has become agents, and now you can use that also from the cloud. So that's already evolving on doing it more outside of your VS Code tool, basically. I'm using prompt files. I will talk more on that in MCP support. You don't need to rethink or think everything from scratch. There's this awesome GitHub Copilot customization website or repo where it already has many sample instruction files, prompt files, and chat modes, which you can just use. Let's check it out. So, Copilot instructions, why do they matter? Well, in Copilot instructions, you can define the platform engineering practices in your instruction files. So you define which kinds of security you want to have enforced on your agents to use in the way they program. So all things you can put in those instruction files, specific requirements on certain code bases, etc., etc. What I did, I created an instruction file for each of the Azure integration services. So I created one for logic apps. This is how my logic app should look like. These are the standards. These are the governance. This is the security. The same applies to API management. These are the policies that you can use. This is how you use them, etc., etc. All putting them into the instruction files. And the funny thing is, it will be automatically used by agents locally and in the cloud because it uses them automatically in every request. Do I need to create those integrations? If I already have a project, an integration project, and I want to create something similar with agents, just go to that repo and push this button. Generate instructions. It will create a very extensive instruction file for you, which you can use in other projects that are similar to this one. Well, so for example, this is like a more generic Copilot instruction file where you say like, okay, I'm using landing zone best practices. I'm putting in like references. I'm using Azure Developer CLI because I want to structure it. I'm using Cloud Events 1.0 standard when we're gonna create like shipment notifications or whatever. So I'm putting it all into the structured file. And again, creating more context for the agent helps me get a better outcome on the result which I'm getting. MCP in your template, well, as I already mentioned. Put this into the mcp.json file, which is important because extensions don't work when you're in the cloud. But this one will be picked up. So when you specify an mcp.json file in your folder, in your repo, then the coding agent will already know these tools as well and it can reuse them. So the coding agent can also use, for example, Azure as a reference on building stuff, deploying stuff. It's your imagination, which you can put in. Prompt files is just a way of sharing user prompt with the rest of your colleagues, maybe, or having some standardized way of asking things to the agent. It helps me sometimes just structure the process. For me, I'm using it more for a demo purpose, but I can imagine that this one is something you would share across your organization where you say like, hey, this prompt works really, really well with this agent, and you're going to share that organizational wide. Well, chat modes, and this is where, and it's called now agents, but it's basically the same definition. This is where it all comes together. So I had the discovery analyst, right? So this is the thing I got from Microsoft 365 Copilot. And this is what I've created in GitHub, or in the GitHub repository. So basically the basis is pretty much the same. I just added a few things to make it a little bit more specific. And you can also be very explicit on the tool you want to use for each agent. And this helps because if you make it much too broad, it will go everywhere. But if you just say like, okay, you can use that Microsoft Learn doc fetch, it will use that specifically to get more best practices. So that's really cool. And last but not least, the coding agent. So in my flow, I'm using Discovery Analyst first to create the IDD, then the IRD, create a dev plan, and hop, it goes to coding agent, and he needs to do the development for me. Nowadays, we've added like a small button to do the delegation. So this cloud with the paper airplane thingy, it's not sending an email to the cloud, but it's basically sending your coding task to a coding agent in the cloud. Interesting announcements on last week's GitHub Universe is that we're not only going to support the coding agent from GitHub, but also Cloud, but also other third-party vendors, which are already also have good coding agents, right? So we're basically opening up the ecosystem when it comes to coding autonomously in the cloud. Well, this is coding agents. So if you have not heard of it, it's your basically your coding agent in the cloud, and you can just delegate tasks to it. And you can just do like assign if you have an issue or like you want to debug something or you have something already registered in GitHub, just assign it to Copilot and it will work on it. Also, a recent announcement is the Agent HQ, and basically the same agents that I use in my chatbots. I can use that in the cloud as well. Just needed to pass that in a different folder, and you're good to go. So I could also use this from the Agent HQ, basically kick off every process that I want. What is coming, you can imagine, is an orchestrator. So I was already trying that out with this orchestrator agent, which basically calls the other agents to do it repeatedly. So I just wanted, in my thought, I was like, okay, if we have single agent, then I can use one agent to kick off the other one. When it comes back, I kick the other one, and then then I don't need to do anything. I already have my orchestrator. Unfortunately, that doesn't work yet, but it will get. They will build something in for basically orchestrating multiple agents at one go. So it will be coming, but not in this manner. So, how long did it take to create this integration pattern? It took 70 minutes to create. Was it perfect from the outcome? First time, no. But I took those learnings into the next one of my project because I saw what was missing. Then the output was much better. Then I could divert on the scenarios I wanted to implement. Sometimes I just need Copilot sometimes to just fix one or two issues, but it will deploy it at one go. The interesting one is it only costs one premium request, so creating this whole integration pattern with all the documentation with it, well, no. Documentation is also one premium call, right? Every call you do from the GitHub Copilot always also for the big models will take one. So, but coding agent, it only costs one premium request. Yeah.
So this is when you do it in cloud, right? Because now
Yeah.
the VS Code it will be multiple requests because
Correct.
if you want prompting.
Yeah. So what you see in the model selection, you see 1x,
Yeah.
0x.
Those are non-premium X, 1x are premium.
Exactly. So basically, if you use a premium model and do one request, it's the same as distributing your complete coding task to coding agent, which will do also fixing on the fly, right? So it will create code, it will test it, and if there are bugs in it, it will immediately fix it as well, and all within one premium request.
But it doesn't depend upon the execution time or complexity.
No,
No?
no, it's just one premium request. Here. I could have run this one for max 60 minutes if I wanted to. But yeah, it completed the task in 7 minutes. That's good. And it only cost me $4. That's where my grandma is also very happy. Yes. I can buy an extra lolly from Pascal. Okay. Are you interested in spec-driven development? Check out these links because especially the top one, SpecKit, like I know from Microsoft side, Ben Marsky is working really hard on this. And within Microsoft, I hear only SpecKit, to be honest. And I think it's a little bit, I will call it like a very, it's something, I feel sometimes a little bit clunky. It has some programming in it as well, which you must like to use SpecKit. So I also added the one that I created together with the GDBs, which is Spec to Cloud. That is more related to the approach that I took with the chat notes. Am I over time?
No, fine.
Cool.
Maybe there's one person.
Give me a-
Yeah. So I have been using agent in VS Code a lot.
Yeah.
But of course now it's available in cloud as well. It's a different rounds. So what will be the difference in what scenarios I would use it in VS Code versus when should it be used in Executive Cloud?
Spot on question. I did my specs, generating my IRD, all from the VS Code client, and I did it deliberately because coding agent is good at creating code. It's trained on code. So I should only put any coding task for creating tests or creating code basically. That's the task I would put out to coding agent to do. And you can just kick it off as much as you want, autonomously, parallel, doesn't really matter. It will just go and fix it. But when you're going to create your specs, I like the reasoning models because I want to have like interaction. Like, okay, I'm going to create this pattern. Then it will probably, so I had some discussions with my GitHub Copilot agent, which I defined, like, okay, but then it said to me like, okay, well, what kind of pattern do you want? So I said, yeah, I'm using that. I want to use an async pattern. Okay, then I'm going to use these services. So I want to have reasoning on it and to better help me drive my spec. So when it comes to spec creation, I would say documentation, client. Spec, client. Architecture, client. Discovery.
But in both the approach, in either of the approach, you can choose models. So what is less?
Yeah, but the coding agent is really you're delegating it to coding agent. But the coding agent is just one specific coding agent, right? It's not a custom chatbot I can use. Not completely true, but yes, most of the sense it's how it works. Other questions? I would state that you should have like a lot of questions because this, in my opinion, this will change how we create integrations massively. Because now you probably are working on creating specifications all the time, creating mappings, working in logic apps, doing all kinds of difficult stuff.
Yes, but it's about that too, right? But yes, now AI can do my work, and then you realize now AI can do my work.
We are transforming the world with AI. It's not AI that is transforming, we are transforming the world with AI. So what I thought during the summer was, okay, but how can I leverage all those capabilities so that I can do more in less time? So one of the things that I do a lot in my job is creating MVPs or POCs. What I already do now in a very early stage to the customer, can you specify, like, give me a small specification of what you want? I just pass it into SpecKit, and it just creates that complete solution, and I'm like, wow. And I can come back the next day with my pre-sales demo on the actual solution that he wanted. That's how I thought, like, okay, this is how I'm gonna reimagine my job. But the thing is, how would you reimagine your job? I would definitely say use the idea coach for that. Because it will help you just get your mind on a straight level, thinking, okay, these are the steps that I'm always doing when I'm creating this. I cannot imagine that you all have like certain patterns that you always follow. So I'm gonna create this integration pattern. I'm always gonna get the some guidance or some security guidance, I don't know, from the customer. I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get that. Put it into ID coach. Let it figure out which agent you can choose for that to be more effective. Would be my take. Now, questions? Other questions? No? Okay, thanks. No, I'm with the community. I am the community. But a representing one.
Thanks a lot.
Oké, bij elkaar op. Dan hebben we nog mooi voor de social. Zou ik ook met jou delen, maar als je even de fles pakt en
De sprekers?
dan geef je hem nog één keer terug.
Oh, dat is goed. Oh ja.
Dan sta je zelf nog een mooie.
Ja,
Ja, hij heeft door en zag al.
Hij zal geen dingen aannemen.
Hey, super.
Dankjewel, dankjewel.
Okay, so this concludes the last session. I hope you got inspired and learned some new things as well. I also have a request for you. So the next MIUG will probably be in spring next year. We're still looking for a location and also a speaker. So if you are willing to share some nice insights for us, then please reach out to me. It's probably the easiest. And if your organization would like to host a session like this, just talk it over and get in touch with me as well. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask you all. So well, we can now have some drinks in the bar and have some talk, some chat. Thank you for being here. Thank you.